Nation, 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 Harry Brailsford coming at you as we go around the horn with our contributors. And we're with Joshua Liberman out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, a highly desirable place to live. And I just wanted to put that out there. So welcome back, sir. The topic this month is SHOWTIME. And let's back up a little bit. Since I talked to you a month ago, you've been to a couple of shows. Why don't you tell us where you've been and if anything distinctive stood out, and then we'll talk about where you're going and how you're going to get there.
What was the date of the last time we spoke? Harry, do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, I'm going to say early August, okay. Probably right after CompTIA ChannelCon.
Right after ChannelCon.
Yeah.
So the week after ChannelCon was the Exchange show in Denver, and the Channel Company's Exchange show. So yeah. That's always different than most of the shows.
It is.
In our native environment as SMBs, it tends to attract bigger players, bigger MSPs, bigger IT providers, and people that work with bigger companies as end companies. Yep. So there's always exposure to vendors and analysis and folks that we don't get nearly so much of in our particular group. Actually, as a side note, one of the things I found very interesting there was that they had a very professional setup for headshots, more than I've seen at most shows, to the point that they actually had people doing hair and makeup prior to headshots, wow. Which I don't think I've seen at another show. And as a photographer, that's interesting to me. But back to the actual IT component of the show, there's too much to go through, but I will say that one of the unique, if not the most unique, yeah, you can't use modifiers with unique, the unique aspect of that show is that they pair you off in what they call boardrooms, which is typically anywhere from half a dozen to 2 dozen attendees in a breakout room with a single vendor, and anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, 50 minutes maybe, to have that vendor present to you and have a real live interactive session. I was dubious of this. It felt very much like just being paying somebody to sell to you, but in reality, right. And while there is some of that, depending on the presenter, some of them are a lot better than others.
Yeah,
it's a pretty valuable situation because you can ask real specific drill down questions, and with a big enough boardroom, and typically there are over a dozen people in that room, there's going to be folks that use the product or products of this vendor. There's going to be folks that used to, then there's going to be folks that are considering it. So there's a good range of questions and interactivity and probing going on. And there's usually only 2 or 3 leaders in any boardroom who are really doing the question asking, and I'm never shy to ask questions. So that's really interesting. The other thing that sets apart Exchange is the fact that it's most of the people there are hosted, which means they pay airfare and hotel.
Right.
And provide transit, and that's pretty nifty. That's the first time they did that for me. I'm not really sure how we qualified, but anyway, so that was good. The week after that was ASCII in Toronto, and I hadn't been. It's their 3rd show in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and it was really good. It was great to see the Canadian providers. There wasn't anything strikingly different about how they do their shows there than here, but Toronto is a fabulous city to wander around. Lots of cool pictures out on the water. It is interesting to hear about the struggles that MSPs have there and how little different they are from here. But that was a great show, and of course there were vendors that are Canadian only, and there were vendors that were North American across the whole delivery. So that was also cool. Had a good time there overall.
Hey Josh, with that show, an observation then a question. So the observation is historically we have had great shows in Toronto. You know, Toronto's a big honkin' city, man. We've done well up there. And then were you out in Mississauga in the tech corridor, or were you in downtown Toronto?
Downtown. No, downtown. Yeah, in next to what they call the graffiti district. Which is really cool. Just a little bit of ways, maybe a half-mile walk from the water, from the water. So yeah, it was pretty darn impressive. I think Toronto is the roughly 5th largest city in North America. It's 3 million in downtown. So yeah, it's big, and it's very interesting. And as you might expect, very friendly folks and very clean and orderly. And it's not Singapore, but it's pretty darn nifty. Yeah, I was glad to go there. I'm not typically a tremendous fan of big cities for more than a few days, but I could easily imagine spending a couple of weeks there. It's really, really interesting, really good.
Okay, and then next that was at ChannelPro was next down in San Jose.
Yeah, I guess it was. I'm looking through my calendar. It's the only way I can keep up. Yes, San Jose. That was last week, right? Yeah. Yes. So San Jose ChannelPro, which was also a very good show. Actually, one of their better shows ever for me, especially the morning. Great presentations, great interactions, a lot of fun. For them, at ASCII Toronto, I just attended, as I did at Exchange. With ChannelPro events, I generally participate, and I was on a panel about monetizing IT security for your SMBs. Yeah, how they can be doing it basically. And that was fun, of course, but it was even more fun just interacting with people there that I don't get to see quite as frequently as others. So some regulars and some non-regulars from in my life. Their shows are very much like ASCII shows in terms of whom they draw, although if I had to guess and make a generalization, they tend to draw a larger percentage of business than tech people than does ASCII, and they tend to draw refreshingly a significant percentage of women, because there are a lot of shows that are just not that way in our industry, but certainly the ChannelPro shows are good in bringing a cross section of people, and I don't just mean men and women, but a cross section of vendors. MSP.
Well, and if you don't mind, let me talk about that. Since we last talked, I hit the and again, I'll just say a couple things and then we'll move forward. But I hit the SharePoint Fest in Seattle. Probably about 300 SharePoint people. One guy even flew up from Fort Lauderdale. Now, Joshua, that's an IT pro crowd. That's not an MSP crowd, right? This guy worked for the city of Fort Lauderdale, that kind of guy. And but I will tell you this, but when we talk about women in technology, it was probably 50% women at the SharePoint show. So that also was interesting, and that kind of makes sense in terms of maybe a more natural IT pro fit in terms of workflow and content management. And so different animal. And then I hit Solar Winds and Power last week while you were in San Jose with ChannelPro. I was at Solar Winds and Power. Folks, you'll see I think I did 5 videos. It's up on our channel, certainly at smbnation.com. So I'll leave that up to the wiser minds. But moving forward, let's talk about the busy fall season. I am going to be at GlueX in Phoenix. Are you going to be at GlueX, my good friend?
Boy, I'm going to be thoroughly at GlueX, but in the capacity as their photographer. So I'm working. I've got 30 hours of work in 3 days, including Sunday. So I'm going to be busy here. It's actually become a much bigger show. It's now in the mid-range of shows between the ASCII ChannelPro crowd and the DattoCon IT Nation, or whatever that's called nowadays, shows. So it's not be thousands, but it'll be quite a few hundred. I think they're expecting 600. So it's a bigger show, and yes, I'll be there stem to stern.
Okay. Then I'm off to Spice World. That's the annual event put on by Spiceworks. Again, an IT pro community known as the Comic Con of conferences, people in costumes and so on. That's down in Austin. Again, Josh, different crowd, no question about it. You're dealing with people that work for Boeing, IT pros. It's but you know, we're a big tent. After that, my fine feathered friend, I hit Continuum Navigate in Pittsburgh. Don't know if I'll have the pleasure of seeing you at Continuum this year.
Actually, well, go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say they divided up into 2 shows. They used to have one Continuum Navigate, typically in Boston, and now it's East Coast, West Coast. Sir, what do you have coming up in that same kind of interim time frame the next couple weeks?
Things are pretty light for me. I've got the IT Glow work show for me. After that ends in Phoenix on Tuesday, a day later, I've got a small PAX 8 gathering for their partners, but that's really not a show. It's more of a lunch and learn thing. And the next event I have after that in the industry is across the pond, as they say, in Paris, and that's the middle of October. Actually, the last third of October. I managed to put together a vacation/business trip. So I'm going to be out at DattoCon in Paris, which is roughly October.
Oh man, I am jealous. Yeah, I'm jealous.
Well, yeah, it's not as good as it sounds. Nobody's paying me to go there. Although I am shooting a party while I'm there. And as an American, I should say, as a photographer, I will be shooting a party that's going to be held by BVoIP and others there at the show. But I'm going there to meet European MSPs and see what it's like. Practice languages. I still speak good French and Italian and Spanish and maybe German. I'll find out. So I want to practice and mingle with people. And I've never taken, my wife has never been to Paris. So we've got 5 days in Paris after 5 days somewhere else. We're still trying to figure out if that's going to be the countryside of France or maybe even London first and then across. But it's I'm paying for it, but it's okay. It's vacation.
I do those too. So let me rattle off, since we're kind of doing showtime. If you don't mind, I'm just going to rattle off a few, and then this will take us up to Thanksgiving, folks. So I penciled in ArcticCon up in Anchorage, Alaska, where I'm from, on early October the 3rd when I get back from Pittsburgh. That's to be determined. That's a security show for B2B. Then it's SureWeb Accelerate in Montreal, the 10th and 11th of October, followed by, the Acronis Global Cyber Summit in Miami, the 13th through 16th. Run home. I'm hitting a cannabis technology show called Rad Expo in Portland, 23-24. That's primarily focused on point of sale technologies. Portland is always a lovely trip. Love Portland. And then, Josh, question for you. I penciled in but not confirmed ConnectWise over Halloween. ConnectWise IT Nation have you been to IT Nation? Is that a show you go to, my friend?
I went last year for the first time, and I did manage to get hosted again. I'm not really sure why, but I didn't say no. And it was large, complicated, good. It would have a great deal more value if I was involved in their ecosystem. I don't work with any product within their immediate scope. So it was obviously a sales effort on their part. And they were very good about it. They weren't aggressive. They weren't disappointed when we later discussed that I wasn't willing to make that jump. And I would recommend attending it once in your career at an absolute minimum. And if you don't do other large shows, the only shows in the league of that are DattoCon and the Robin Robbins event, her, what does she call that, boot camp. In terms of vendor count, I think only IT Nation and DattoCon are similar. Our events are not that way in terms of vendor count.
Exactly. And then that brings us up to ChannelPro in the New York City area on November 6th. I'm assuming I'll see you there. I always build a couple days around that show. It's an excuse to get to New York City as much as anything, or what was really New Jersey, but I treat it as New York City. Will I see you at ChannelCon in early November, my friend?
ChannelPro, yeah, I'll be at ChannelPro in November. I'm still speaking for him this year at least. And I do the same you do, except I'm not doing it this year. This year I'm going on my own. Heidi's not going with me. She's the big fan of New York City, and without her going along, it's just going to be an in and out, which is a lot of flying. Getting out to New York from Albuquerque is non-trivial. As a matter of fact, I have to go on American Airlines, which is always a crapshoot. So I'll be going, but just in and out. I come in the afternoon before, I stay all day, and then I leave the afternoon after. So I don't know that I'll get into Manhattan at all. Maybe the night before. And actually, Harry, because of personal health stuff that I'm going to be doing and get some replacement parts installed, I will be calling it a year sometime in mid-November. I don't think I have anything until January after mid-November.
Amen. Amen, brother. Yeah, because the last one I was going to mention for the purposes of this was Ingram 1 in Denver, November 18th through roughly the 20th. But it sounds like we may not see you at Ingram 1 in Denver this year.
No, I think my last anything is November 14th. So we did skip one in there from the channel company, the folks that do Exchange. They also have their next gen show coming up in October. It just happens to be, actually we skipped two. It just happens to be that coincides exactly with the days of ASCII's end of year show in Boston. So the flight back from Paris from me goes to Boston, or actually Philly to Boston, and I'll be working there too at the ASCII show as a photographer. So I've got a few photo events coming up. But when I act as a photographer, especially where I'm only doing headshots in the party, I get to basically be a fly on the wall at the whole show and get paid to do so. So that's kind of nifty. I will be doing that, so that the big ASCII end of year show and party is in Boston downtown, and that is right at the end of October. I think the 24th and 5th of October. So I come back from Paris to there. Then I see you a couple weeks later or less in the New York area for ChannelPro. Yeah. And at this moment, I haven't locked down anything past the 14th. And I think I will be done for the year, a little bit early. But like I said, Next Gen, which is a really different show from Exchange and not a hosted type of show, more like the shows in our space. I went to it
last year and saw you. Yep.
So that's in, I think it's in Irvine this year as it was last year, and I think that they're going to revert back to San Diego after that, but it looks like that is, just put it out here, October 23rd and 4th. Yes, 22nd through 24th.
Okay, and I'm actually sorry that they gave up the month of December. December was actually a really good fit for that show, and they moved it back to October because there's so many collisions, right? I've got collisions with those dates.
Yeah. We should put in a pitch, by the way, for one of my favorite things that Dave Seibert does in the industry. It's pretty passive, and he puts on his great SMB Tech Fest shows, which are always in Anaheim, except they're moving to Irvine as of this quarter. We overlooked his show. That's also in October, and it's also right when I'll be out of the country, but that's the 16th through 17th of October in Irvine, in a brand new high-tech place. I bring that up in particular because Dave has one of the better industry event calendars, and I'm emailing that to you right now, Harry, if you want to do something with that.
Yeah, no, we'll link off to that. It's hard work. Well, hey, Josh, we're gonna bounce, but I appreciate you doing Showtime with me for the fall, and we'll see you next month and get some updates from you.
Sure, Harry, no problem. I guess we didn't have to worry about filling up the time. Okay.
All right. Fly safe. All right. Thank you, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Harry. Have a good time out there. See you.
All right.
See you so much.